Thank you for tuning in to the YouTube replay from our Green Drinks June 2021 edition. We welcomed SmartNet Alliance members Roderick Costain, founder of Roco Industries, along with Kelvin Hodges, founder of Bobolink Solar, to talk all about solar energy.
Buddy, we've got Green Drinks June, and what a great topic because we're really into the hot months. This is the longest days of the year in this month, so what a great time to talk about solar energy. And I'm excited to welcome two of our members. First up, we've got Roderick Costain from Roco Industries, and then we've got Kelvin Hodges from Bobolink Solar. So they'll be going deep on solar. Roderick's going to talk a little bit more about the industry as a whole, and then end off with a little bit of a blurb about some of his panels. And then Kelvin's going to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts about solar, whether you want to do DIY at the cottage or maybe you want to go for a little bit bigger system at home. He'll outline all that. As always, we'll be recording this session and putting it out later. And then during the presentation, if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and add them to Q&A. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Nick Hebb with SmartNet Alliance. The Alliance is a group of businesses and organizations who collaborate on projects and initiatives to accelerate Canada's transition to a sustainable economy. For more information on SNA, please consult our website and be sure to check out our brand new membership pages. I'll put those links into chat shortly. Okay, so let's get rolling. First up, we've got Roderick Costain, and he's the founder of Roco Industries, Inc. And he founded that along with his wife, Angelina, to solve a problem. The problem was that regular rooftop solar panels are not architecturally integrated, and that limits the effectiveness and then where you can apply them. Other products on the market are too expensive. These issues limit adoption of green energy solutions. So leveraging his background in construction and science, Roderick invented the technology and designed SparClad. It's a 2-in-1 solar siding product that insulates the wall while generating electricity for net zero building performance. So I want to welcome SmartNet Alliance member Roderick Costain to bring up his presentation and get rolling. Thanks so much for joining us, Roderick.
Thank you. I'll just do a little test here. I'll launch it and you tell me, or I guess...
Yeah, I'll let you know when the screen comes up there. Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you're seeing it or not.
Not as of yet, no.
So, okay. Let me try that again.
Sure.
Are you seeing it now? I guess not.
Not coming up yet. Let's see what we could do here. Give us a sec, folks. We'll get this technical glitch fixed and we'll get rolling. One moment.
Let's see here.
Roderick, I can probably share it from my end. Oh, looks like you're good to go.
Okay, you're seeing it now?
We're good to go. We can see your presentation.
I'm using two screens and I wasn't quite sure which the system was picking up. So
sure. So I just want to remind everybody to add your questions into Q&A as we roll here, and then we'll get those to Roderick after his presentation. Thanks so much for joining us, Roderick. Take it away.
Thank you. So my presentation is threefold. We're looking at and it's not updating. Why not? Sorry, I'm trying to get it to forward. Oh, there it goes. 3 parts. I kind of start off with a little bit of the energy efficiency, a little bit of the history leading into the current scenario where you're starting to see a lot more high performance buildings and a lot more interest in energy efficient buildings. A little bit of that. A lot of this stuff people already know. And then I do a bit of a cross section of various technologies and various photovoltaic cell technologies and what kind of products are being developed out of that, with some more information about my product in particular. And then I do a little bit of theorizing about what's next, what's coming down the pipeline in terms of impacts on industry, but also what we might see with new products coming down the pipeline. I attended a presentation not too long ago from Arctic Heat Pumps. They make a variety of air and ground source heat pumps. And they made a really interesting point that I thought would be worthwhile bringing up here, in that none of this technology is new. It's been around for 30 years. The adoption is new. We've seen Energy Star appliances and high efficiency furnaces evolve in our homes for quite a while, but a lot of this core technology has been around for a long time. We just really haven't pushed on adopting it to a high degree, it seems. Part of that can be seen in the global warming topics, the Kyoto Agreement, and how the government evaluated it and told us it's such a big failure. Really, there was sort of, as a society and even through the government, quasi-acceptance that global warming is really real and a thing. And part of that is because, people will make stories and they'll present information, but they'll kind of give two sides of the story. So what do you believe sometimes? And there wasn't any urgency to the change. However, during COP12, I can't remember, Climate Agreement Partnership Group, and in Paris Climate Agreement, they realized, the government realized unless you actually change the rules, you're likely not going to push and make the systems change. And at the same time, some of the information coming out was talking about where's all the energy going and what's using it. And buildings were determined to use about 50% of the global energy supply, half of it just putting the building up, and the other half, the amount of energy used to heat it over its lifetime. So we needed to kind of look at buildings as a source of carbon use and address it as an issue. And that led to changing regulations, which, suddenly now it becomes, we're getting serious about making changes, and about time, from my view. The Energy Code last update was 2017, but there is planned upgrades with regard to energy and net zero ready and net zero building code regulations by 2025 and 2030 planned. So they're not done yet in terms of putting all the rules in place. However, that has led to some good projects in our can leading it. They have this R2000 project. It's basically larger builders are getting involved in demonstrating that yes, you can at a large scale build neighborhoods all high energy performance. And surprise, surprise, it's very possible. But when you take a look at what they're doing, we already know passive homes and green builders have been doing this for a long time. What they're doing isn't new per se. They're just finally implementing it because the regulations are changing. So that's why, having this quasi-acceptance really didn't produce a change. We need to change the rules and make builders, make companies and individuals want to adopt this new way of doing it, because it does cost more. There is a cost to this. But it's interesting to know that it's not new per se. Although with a new building, you do have a lot more choice with regard to how you orient the roof. Take a look at this roof line on this one. They do have a large open space that is oriented toward the south to accommodate solar panels. And renovations are a different scenario here. These buildings are already built, and it's not so easy to suddenly change the building orientation or the roof structure. That can become quite cost prohibitive. So it forms a very different challenge. And if you kind of pick out the roofs in this picture, there's probably only maybe 15% of the roofs that have good, really, optimal orientation toward a decent sun path for good cost efficiency. So it definitely presents a different challenge. And that's partly why I launched my company, because I felt there needed to be more choice on the market with respect to the types of photovoltaic products. The good news part of this, though, is if you take a look at the Energy Evolution plan, they only talk about maybe 30% of the homes in terms of renovation that really need to be renovated to net zero standards. And, albeit that the grid needs to expand at about 30% capacity, it's interesting that they report that, because the renovation being a bigger problem kind of thing, we don't necessarily need to go to 100%. We just need to find enough new products to allow 30% or so to get there. And the reason is it's not just about buildings. It's about transportation. It's about other things. It's about how clean our power grid is. There's a couple links here. This grid watch is interesting. If you take a look at it, only about 0.4% of our power is actually coming from solar. Yet the international reports talk about the ideal mix being closer to 6%. So we've got a long way to go in terms of maturing our electrical systems and our power generation systems. This slide is sort of like the thing you should never do in a presentation because it's just way too busy. But the graphic here is from NREL down the States, and I really can't change it. It's not editable. It's just an image. But the link is there if you want to check it out. But the main point of what I want to kind of demonstrate here is if you look to the left, back when a lot of these core technologies were starting to come to market, started to become researched, the overall performance was lower, 4, 8, 12%, one as high as 20 something. But there's only maybe 4 or 5. You look to the right and it's a very different picture. There's more technologies that came to market, more types of PV technologies, more combination of PV technologies, and the overall trend is higher performance. And what I see has been the big difference that's happened in the market is the impact of having thin film technology developed, and which is really a manufacturing process, and material impurities, because those have driven up PV efficiencies, and the multi-junction and perovskite issues or types of PV cells. They're more of a future impact issue, which I'll circle back to later. But it's interesting to see there's so much in the market being developed. Now, each type of material does have its sort of niche in terms of what kind of products can be developed from them. And of course, like the thin film one, they use like a printing technology, these rollers in the middle of the screen there. They spit out yards and yards of this stuff very, very quickly. And that makes it very inexpensive to make a lot of these thin film solar panels because they can make it such high volume at such low prices. And that's why they're able to achieve, in some instances, as low as 50 cents per watt for these solar fields, The downside of this technology is it's all polymers, and polymer type of PV material is a lot more susceptible to heat effects, which you put those against a building with limited ventilation and suddenly your efficiency drops through the floor and you don't have a good cost per watt anymore because you don't have the efficiency. The other part I don't like or have not liked in the past for some of these is they use a lot of toxic elements. But I'm kind of encouraged a bit by this new one, the SIGs, the copper, indium, gallium arsenide. Indium and gallium are rare earth elements, but they're not terribly toxic. And copper and selenium are pretty, they're pretty safe compared to a lot of things. Definitely more safe than cadmium. So it's safety is advancing also in these applications, I would say. Another cool technology is the concentrator type of PV cells. And there's a couple companies in Ontario that are developing products around this. Morgan Solar out of Toronto and Quadra Power, which I think they call themselves co-energy or concentrated solar energy or something like that. For solar fields or industrial applications, Morgan Solar's technology, supposedly according to them, is outcompeting the thin film technologies for certain applications. And for small buildings, like maybe 7 stories or 4 stories where you got a limited roof, the flat roof application from Quadra, I think that the middle picture is a decent solution because you don't have a lot of roof space and you need to have something a little more dense, power dense, I mean. Of course, organic PV materials and quantum dot technologies are very useful for things like windows. You can cover a small percentage of the surface area and still get lots of sunlight through it with a little bit of tinting, so that can be added comfort where you don't get all the intensity. But they overall are lower efficiency. Quantum dot's a little bit better than the organic types, but they're lower efficiency, which increase cost a bit. And there's a new company out of Toronto that's developing quantum dot photovoltaic products. So we might be seeing more of these types of products hitting the market. The cladding materials that have been around, I've seen a long list of them for like at least a decade now of different types of cladding type materials for tall buildings come out. The most interesting one I've seen recently is this one from Mitrex, the left picture. It's actually an aluminum matrix with a bunch of air in there. so that it can be insulative, and they got the photovoltaic layer, and plus they have a design surface which might impact performance because anytime you reflect light, you're not absorbing light into the solar cell, so it might impact performance a bit, but hopefully they got that worked out to make it cost effective. The issue with cladding though is a lot of products are really, like the picture down the bottom right, are nothing more than a rain screen. They're really not, they don't have any kind of building value. I heard of one horror story down in Toronto where they retrofit the entire building, and even after all the electrical production of the solar panels around the exterior, they had to heat the building more with natural gas, so their carbon output went up, you know, which they chose the wrong product for that kind of installation. They really needed to consider the building product aspect of the solution. And of course, in the building sector, for the residential sector, I mean, the picture to the right is the common choice where we have rooftop solar panels, but we're also seeing some more and more adoption of the more architecturally integrated solutions. Of course, Tesla can be very hard to get, and it can be a little bit pricey for sure. This new PV tech company, I'm not sure what their price point looks like, but it's a company out of Ontario, and it looks like a pretty decent solution for rooftops as well. So we'll see what that, I'll keep watching that one to see what kind of price point they put on that. If it outcompetes Tesla, I think it's a winner. And a byproduct here, it's a solar siding material, as the top picture kind of shows, the small panels that kind of line up like siding. And there are a number of vertical solar panel installations that have happened, and they don't quite fit the building very well. So that was my idea, was to develop a more integrated, more aesthetically pleasing version so we can achieve energy, you know, net zero energy targets, but also keep your home looking like a home. In terms of my product itself, it does have a textured surface film on the front, and that increases its performance. It helps the panel absorb light from different sun angles. But just like any solar panel, when you orient it vertically, you do lose some power because orientation matters. The other advantage is it doesn't reflect light like a solar panel because it's not glass. It's a very diffuse reflection, which makes it safer for around residential situations. You don't get that sunspot reflection. And because the surface is engineered with the texture, it does allow the maximum light to reach solar cells from a variety of angles, which means it can take advantage of things like reflected light and maybe snow reflected light in the winter. Our panels are a little bit smart. There is electronic circuitry in there that where if one panel gets shaded and is going to impact the performance of the rest of the system, it'll turn itself off and disconnect and allow the rest of the system to operate without that one part of the solar panel affecting performance. And we do have a very rugged cell layout, which makes the cells and the interior and everything else like that stay free from damage. You might damage the exterior of the panels, but the interior will keep working, keeps on ticking, just like that battery commercial. And because it's self-contained, the actual composite layers are insulative, adding R value, and it creates the whole system, creates a very shock-resistant framework. I call it steel toe boot friendly, good for contractors. You can drop them and you pick them up and install them and they still work just fine. And the last point there is because we don't use steel and glass, it's a lot more easy to reformulate or reshape the materials I use into different layouts. So it's less expensive to try to recycle for one, but also to make new styles of product, to make it, you know, to try to keep it current because styles do change from time to time. The basic design is a layered composite. I got a little graphic here that I run, which kind of shows the end caps coming off and the top layer kind of separating from the bottom, and then all the composite layers kind of separating, including the solar cells in there and the wiring. We've got various layers of adhesive and the cells and wires in there. The very middle green thing is the electronic circuit we have, and of course, out the bottom, out of the back of the panel comes traditional PV cable and connections. One of the bigger advantages to my product is because we I have a builder's background. My dad was a builder. I tried to design the product to leverage existing construction materials. The cost of installation is a big part of the overall costs that consumers will have to bear for installing solar systems. So developing a product that can use off-the-shelf, non-custom materials to install with. You can walk up and down the old aisles of Home Depot or other building material supply stores and pick up everything you need to install our product. There's nothing custom about it that way other than the panel itself. We design it that way to keep your costs down, basically to keep the finished costs down, to achieve a very low or a lower cost per watt installation. And that's playing again, which I'm trying to, maybe you'll enjoy seeing it again. I'll let it go. So the next slide, what's next? Well, anybody's guess to a certain degree, but I am part of this Workforce 2030, where we're trying to fast track the workforce into a low carbon workforce. Partly because I know with my product, we're going to have people and tradespersons who are familiar with installing siding and siding systems and construction techniques, as well as solar panel installation and processes. So we're going to have tradespeople who can do both roles. And I think the overall trend within the construction industry is much more of that. You're going to find much more integration between building control systems and contract work. As with the cladding or any of these other products, you're going to see a lot more integration between roofing persons and tall building cladding persons, and also installing electrified systems and even the controlling systems around that. And I've seen some technical college and trades colleges starting to adapt their programs to do a lot more cross-training within the sector. And even within the building industry, you're seeing more and more builders, especially the large ones, develop R&D units and develop new and different construction techniques that they roll out amongst their staff to adapt to these new processes, just to make sure they're on top of the trends and to remain competitive. I mentioned earlier about multi-junction perovskites. What I've seen in the research lately is the perovskites are leaning toward thin film forms of technologies, but they're also being combined with things like silica. So if they're going down the road of thin film forms of PV materials, it's likely they'll be impactful in the industrial sector, large solar fields and stuff like that, probably reducing the cost per watt for those systems to I don't know, maybe a tenth of what it is today. I can see that because they do produce quite a bit more power compared to a lot of the other thin film materials that are in the industrial sector there. For multi-junction, a bit of a cute story. If you search online, you'll see sometimes products from China talking about multi-junction solar cells. And what they're talking about is a solar cell with connection points. They're not multi-junction, they're multi-terminal. They have more terminals to connect electrical systems. Multi-junction means you have PV junctions. You have 4 or 5 layers of PV material stacked one on top of the other to absorb more bandwidth from the electromagnetic spectrum. So normally a solar cell will absorb within the visible range of light. They're extending that into the UV, the UV and the infrared ranges. So they're absorbing more and more light across a broader range of sunlight. And that's how they're able to achieve, which is 30, 40, 50% efficiencies. So yeah, right now those applications are pretty far and few between, mostly in satellites probably because they're so expensive. But as prices go down, these products might end up into the built environment, into products. I can see that happening because they're still being designed as wafers. Where it goes from there, what kind of other product integration happens, I don't know, but if PVEs can be integrated into building products like what we're doing as a company, then why not cars? And it's happening already. And what's next? Well, I think the options are plenty. And here's my contact information. If you have any questions on this presentation or just want to know more about what I'm doing, please feel free to contact me.
Thanks so much, Roderick. We did have a few questions come in there. Yeah, we can see everybody. So we did have a few questions come in from the audience here. Thanks so much for that presentation. Nice to sort of have a think about where solar's been and where it's going. Luca was wondering, would SparClad work better during the winter than flat rooftop solar due to the sun inclination?
Theoretically, yes. What I've seen from our pilot installation at Art Hunter's house, thank you, Art, is the ratio of power changes seasonally. And what we've seen earlier in the spring when the sun angles were greater, the ratio of power between the vertical installation and the rooftop installation was, more, I guess, maybe more favored toward the vertical installation. But lately, with the sun angles getting higher and higher, I see the ratio changing so that the rooftop is making more compared to the vertical orientation. So in the winter, theoretically, it should be more competitive with rooftop.
No, that's great, and I know we've got Art here, so maybe we'll grab a couple words out of him from your pilot installation. We've got a few more questions from the audience, though. James is wondering, Roderick, where is the manufacturing facility for these modules?
we right now we were manufacturing out of Makerspace. People know Makerspace North, but we got kicked out of there. What do you call it? The landlord kicked the main tenant out, and we were a subtenant. So right now we have our operations split between 3 places: my house, my garage, a storage unit for curing, and that's a diamond storage unit. And then we have another for electronics and stuff like that. And our robotics is out in Aurelia, where my technician is. He actually had to leave his place in Ottawa, and he moved in with his parents. So he's setting up a place in Aurelia to expand our electronics and robotics efforts.
Well, there you go. Maybe
nice, but we're functioning.
Maybe James has a bit of room for you there, and we'll have some time for follow up, everybody, at the end. But yeah, he's in his backyard there. So thanks so much, James, for that question. Manjena is wondering, are the panels impact rated to protect against hailstorms or direct impacts?
Impact rated, no, but do they have an impact rating? Yes. We have to approach NRCan and do the formal building product testing, but the material properties themselves from the manufacturer, like we don't manufacture the raw materials ourselves. We get other companies to manufacture it, and we really just assemble. But the material properties from other companies would demonstrate we can meet the impact requirements or whatever for hail. And as far as like wind load and water resistance in the building product, like the building codes with regard to siding products, it meets those requirements. We just haven't had it formally tested and rated yet.
Well, that's great. And EDAT is wondering, why aren't we manufacturing these panels, thin films, etc. in Canada using our own raw materials, not just for Canada, but for the global market, rather than outsource them to offshore suppliers? Great question.
A little bit historical, really. The reason we started offshoring things was because human labor costs were much higher here. But with the advent of robotics, those advantages are becoming less and less prominent. And there's a lot of talk about onshoring so the technology is back to Canada. Personally, it probably is a little cheaper still offshore, but at the same time, there's a huge argument for doing it onshore and doing it here. And a lot of it is starting to happen here. Like Morgan Solar, their products, they're being made by Silfab down in Toronto. So there is a lot more onshoring of some of these technology developments in Canada. Some of it does relate to who develops it. Canadian Solar developed a lot of the thin film technology. Of course, most of their operations in China. So they have a bias to operate there or manufacture there. But yeah, a little bit historical, a little bit of times are changing too.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of a first for us on our virtual green drinks. We've got someone in the audience from Australia. So thanks so much, Robin, from joining us from Australia. I won't try to do the conversion to know what time it is. but assume it's probably a bit of an ungodly hour. But thanks so much for joining us, Robin. And, we've seen our virtual green drinks go international, so appreciate that. Robin's wondering, he works in the events industry and is looking for solutions that are temporary, i.e. set up and pull down. Do you have some thoughts to share on this and whether your products have a future in the event sector? They certainly look easier to handle than the bigger panels. So like how modular they are, I guess, is the idea.
Well, you can build some temporary walls and have my product install on it. You're right, it is easier to install, easy to handle. They're light. They're not heavy at all to haul around. So it does make it a lot easier to maybe use in a temporary setup. That's an interesting idea. But they could be, like, a lot of temporary setups are basically constructed on site and with maybe some pre-assembled walls that are fit together. There's no reason you couldn't pre-assemble that wall with some of my product, part of that solution, and then have power right there.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I'd love to see next year's Blues Fest. Maybe they could power one of your stages with your panels.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know Art Hunter had a bit of an installation. I'm not sure if he's there and wants to just say a few words about the pilot project. This would be a great time to jump in. Art, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks. I guess one of the things that people should understand that in the winter, the ice and snow gets on the roof solar, and that basically shuts me down. And there are days and sometimes weeks which go by where I do not get any solar at all. Since putting on the Roderick's product on the wall of my garage, it's just a small installation because it's an R&D outfit, and I'm integrating it with the rest of my system. Well, of course, that doesn't happen. I get solar the entire time, and that's a real benefit. I've been trying to figure out how much is happening with reflection off the snow, but we didn't get this in time to be able to do some real analysis on that for last winter, but that's clearly on the books for next winter, whereby we should have some real performance data, rather than just theoretical calculations, and that's the whole reason I'm involved.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Art. Appreciate you saying a few words there, and definitely, offering your home and your microgrid project up for R&D for some of these startups. It's great, right? Because that's where they can get rolling and get that data and get everything rolling. So thanks so much, Art, again.
I should probably add, Nick, and I probably should have added a slide in the presentation with respect to this, but company status. Right now, I'm going through some iterations with regard to learning how to manufacture my product effectively and increase QA or decrease QA issues, increase reliability, that kind of thing. In reality, when you talk about government research levels, the technology and readiness level, I'm like an 8 or a 9. I'm not commercial yet. Right now, we're Art is a great partner. He's what I would refer to as a pilot partner. We're looking for persons like himself who might be willing to pilot the product, understanding that when the product's commercial, we'll replace the system, because we need to have the iterative product development cycle that it needs to be in place to be able to develop and get to a commercial status. Some of the customers we have are simply signing up as a first in, first out kind of scenario. They're signing up basically to say, when it's commercial, we'll go ahead. But they want it. They're patient to wait 2 or 3 years if it takes that long. So that's what we're seeing here is, or at least I'd like to find a few more pilot partners, but we're seeing a growing list of people who are interested when it's commercial, and that's fine. Talk to me, line yourself up, and a lot of the renovation projects take years to evolve anyway. So, you might as well start planning now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, we expect a lot of people out in the Green Drinks audience to be helping you with that. I know you are mostly looking in the Ottawa area, probably not ready to go to Australia yet or anything. But if anybody is interested to have their home as a pilot project there, just definitely reach out to Roderick. I had one more question for Luca in the chat there. He's wondering, are there really no readily available products for wiping snow off of solar panels? I know I saw a few things where they were trying to heat the panels. Maybe just a couple words about that.
I can respond to that. Yes, there's snow rakes that are out there, and I certainly have one. But from the ground, I can only reach up and get the bottom couple of feet of the solar system. And that works some of the time in that the heat comes in and gets in the bottom of the panel, warms up the panel, and the rest starts sliding off. But if it's really very cold, that doesn't work. And so there are times when just clearing off the bottom couple of foot of the roof never does it. And I'm of the age where there's no way I'm going up on the roof in the winter.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Art. Yeah, there's only so much you can do for renewable energy, right? You don't want to kill your back out. So no, that's great. And Andrew's wondering, and he's got a snow rake set up as well. Andrew's wondering how much space is required behind the panels, Roderick?
Well, the panels are designed to install right on top of furring boards, and the furring board between your wallpaper, your moisture vapor barrier paper, and the furring board and our panels, it creates a gap of, depending on the boards you use, anywhere from maybe 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch, depending on what you're trying to achieve. In Art's installation, we used a strapping board, and it's about 1/4 inch thick. If your construction job, plans for traditional furring boards that are more like 3/4 of an inch thick, then that's the space in between. We do have some grooves in the back to allow for wiring to pass back and forth between the panel and the furring board. But that adds another 2/3 of an inch.
That's great. And thanks, Chris Weisflag, as well, one of our members from EcoGen Energy, for talking a little bit in chat there. Andrew's just wondering, how do you flash to penetrations, windows, etc.? Does that make sense?
Oh, basic J molding window flashing. It's designed to use the existing. If you install siding right now, you're going to use J molding around the window and flashing around the window. Do that and use our panels instead. Our panels are designed to replace existing lap siding. So anything you do to install lap siding, modern lap siding, you would do with our product. It's the same setup.
Great. Well, thanks so much for the presentation, Roderick. Really appreciate your time. Nice to hear how your product's coming along. I know we've been following you here at SmartNet Alliance and supporting your development, and it's great to see the product up on Art's wall there and starting to get into some other pilot projects. And I just have one more. How does the installation cost compare with lap siding? Michelle's wondering.
It's very comparable. The main difference is our boards are shorter, so there's a little bit more labor involved. And when you're installing them, you connect an electrical connection, which doesn't really add a lot of time. We do have a strip molding where you use a nail gun to put the nails in for the furring boards, just like regular lap siding. It's really very comparable. It's not more expensive, not really more expensive than regular lap siding.
That's great. And I had one more question come in here. How do the panels prevent rain from getting between the siding panels?
Well, it's a lap siding product so that they over-connect over each other. There's no gap between them. One snaps on to the one below, just again, like a lap siding type of style. And along the edges, you've got things like furring, what do you call it, J molding, which overlaps on the product on the ends so that it's all sealed. There is no rain and snow and everything else like that would have to go up and around and through the product, which doesn't happen.
Fantastic. And just a reminder, Roderick's going to stick around after 8. If anybody has any follow-up questions, we'll have some time then. Thanks again, Roderick. I know there's a couple other questions kind of rolling through chat there, so
well, I'll try to answer some trailing questions.
Yeah, we'll sort of trail it off to chat to leave
Yeah.
a bit of room for Kelvin, and then we'll have a bit of time after 8 o'clock to get into some follow-up questions from 8 to 8:30. So thanks again, really appreciate it, and yeah, really excited to see your product take off. So appreciate that. Roco Industries, everybody, and SparClad Siding. And we've got a few other questions. So let's bring in Kelvin Hodges, another one of our members from Bobolink Solar. And Kelvin is the solar advocate, green energy entrepreneur, and off-grid catalyst. He founded Bobolink Solar back in 2017 to do a market research into solar adoption. His mandate includes implementation of lithium storage systems, off-grid solar system design, and developing community participation. He is a recent grad of EcoFuel, Quebec's Green Energy Accelerator Program. He is a high-level resource available for to-market renewable energy businesses. So welcome SmartNet Alliance member Kelvin Hodges to give us a little bit of a presentation on solar. Thanks, Kelvin.
Hi, everyone. Wonderful to be here tonight. Roderick, great presentation. That really that was really excellent. Thanks so much. I'm going to try to share my screen here, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, there we go. I see it coming up there, Kelvin. So
I did a quick PDF this afternoon, and so now basically just a really quick background. I had a small farm and I had trees that flowered in the springtime, and they would attract millions of bees. And so the bees were a big part of my life. And I came out of my bedroom in the spring of 2014, and I could smell that the trees were in bloom. They had a beautiful scent, and the forest was fairly large, so the scent spread for miles. And so we would get millions of bees would come into the forest. And so I ran up to the forest to say hello to my buddies, and of course, there was no sound. There were no bees. It was wild bees of all sorts and kinds were just gone. Honeybees were gone. Farmer down the way who has, every neighborhood kind of has the apple tree. He had the apple tree where that just has the best apples, and he got no apples that year, the first time in a couple of generations. So, at this point, we realized we had to do something to change what was going on, find out what was going on, and then see what actions we could take to save the planet. And basically, I'm not going to drag you through 7 years of research, but it comes down to reducing CO2 and sequestering CO2. And then if we can stop dumping enormous amounts of toxins into onto our lands and into our waters, that would probably help too. So here we go, using solar power to save you money.
Sorry, Kelvin, don't mean to interrupt. It looks like there's a bit of a pop-up on your screen there. So I don't know if you wanted to PDF one there.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing
no
that.
worries. We can roll with it.
Yeah, it's just it won't get in the way. Are you guys all seeing the few faces that I'm seeing as well?
Yeah, you've got your off-grid solar on and off-grid solar slide right now. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to address 4 basic topics. The first topic is going to be what is grid tie net metering. And the reason I'm going backwards like this, I know I was supposed to talk about mostly off-grid, is that off-grid and on-grid have really come much closer together. They're kind of tied together now. And I wouldn't have recommended grid tie net metering up until batteries were available. And the batteries are just starting to be available now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. And that's part of why is hybrid technology taking over. And hybrid, as we'll discover, is basically you add a battery, and then that's going to roll into off-grid. And then we may have time for some considerations. We'll see how it goes. So remember, solar is all about saving money, making money, saving the planet, eliminating CO2, and of course, making Greta happy, very important to me. And acting, not talking. There's a lot of people talking, so I'm going to urge those people talking that action speaks louder than words, and so let's not forget that. I know there's, I'm speaking to mostly actors in this, in you guys out there today, but as we go through our lives, let's just keep a focus on acting, and I'll be happier. So what is grid tie or net metering? So essentially here in Ontario, you create your own energy, and there's a number of ways they let you create energy. You can use wind, solar, biomass, and then you use it tied into Hydro One's distribution system, basically through an electronic, what do they call it? Renewable energy technology goes through their system, and there's a bunch of different forms and stuff you fill out, and then you get you can go up to 10 kilowatts without getting too wrapped up in red tape. And then there's ways to get around that limitation, and that's one of the big benefits of batteries, so we'll get to that too. And then, and essentially, Hydro One will give a net metering program to anyone who generates electricity primarily for their own use. And then there's about 10,000 provisos behind that, which we won't talk about unless somebody really cares. Essentially, it comes down to, do they have the carrying capacity? And if you're in a city or a town, yes, they have the carrying capacity for you to add solar onto your rooftop. If you're out in the rural regions like I am, maybe, becomes the answer. And we get into all kinds of little juggling matches and ping pong games, trying to get agreements signed and solar installations moving forward. So your excess generation, and this is one of the key points, because a lot of people stop and think, oh no, I can't do solar because in the wintertime, the snow is going to cover my panels. But the basic thing behind net metering is you have a year period to offset your electrical costs. So what you try to do is build up a big credit in the summertime, and then you get it back in the wintertime. And Art, you don't have to climb up onto your roof. You just have to make enough power during the spring, summer, and fall. And it can be surprising if you have a steep enough angle on your roof. The panels do move quite quickly. I've been known to get out and chuck snowballs at my panels, because if I can even get a little hole in the panel, it'll warm up, and even on a cold day, enough to get the snow to slide off. And of course, the really big change, one of the great things I like to see now is the screen flying around, is the energy storage is now part of the renewable energy system, and it's permissible. Good luck finding batteries, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on too. So what do we need to know? So in order to get going with your solar, you need to know your loads versus your array size. And some people, they're engineers and they calculate things down to 1/10 of a watt, and they get out their 6 years worth or 5 years worth of electrical use, and they have a pretty good idea what their load is, and then they match the array size to the load. What I try to tell people though is, don't get too fixated on this. It's perfectly okay to offset 50% of your load, 75% of your load. You're going to save money, make money no matter what you do. So, and in particular, we were more or less net zero with our net metered agreement. And then of course we put in a couple of heat pumps, because we're changing over from using gas for heating the home to electrical heat pumps. We use air to air. The efficiency is just phenomenal now, right? I mean, they're really gobsmacking. And then of course we added an electric car, so we're nowhere near net zero anymore. But maybe we'll add more panels as we go along. And then you've got things like solar orientation in a lot of parts of the world now. Australia, I think, but Germany for sure. They're doing a lot of east-west roofs now, just because that's all that's left. And you can see here in our little diagram from Generac that half those panels are shaded. And we'll talk a little bit about the algorithms that are out now it's really, really spectacular. I had a setup we were testing just a few days back, and we had 2 panels in series. So you essentially get one huge panel. A quarter of the one panel was completely, and I mean completely shaded, a big block of shade. And typically that would knock your solar production down to essentially 0 or 10% of the panel. We were getting 400 watts out of a 600 watt, what was a giant 600 watt panel. And that was with a really poor, like a really steep angle, misty, cloudy day. And so that's really phenomenal. Like the new MPPT algorithms, just mind-boggling, really good. And then so we come to budget. That's what you really, that's your real deciding factor, is how much dough do you want to spend? And right now we're seeing install prices around $2 a watt, and that's installed. And that's for a basic system. That's, not one, well, actually, sometimes that can be, depending on how clever you are and how much you're willing to do yourself. That can be an install cost, even for a very sophisticated system. So here we go. So what is it? So here we are, we see a basic system, grid tied, without battery, and you see there's your rooftop solar panels, there's your home appliances, and basically the power comes off the roof, it goes to the inverter, and from the inverter it goes to your electrical panel, where it either goes into the house or it goes out to the meter. And with the new net metering, you try to stay behind the meter as much as possible. You want power going out. You want your 10K or whatever your agreement is going out to the grid during the summertime, of course, because you want that big bank for the wintertime. But you can also over panel. And recently, the install that was on the very first screen, he's actually got 25 kilowatts. He's got 15 kilowatts behind the grid and 10 kilowatts going to the grid. And has no electric bill essentially, right? I mean, and it's a phenomenal home. He's got a elevator and everything. It's really quite hilarious. So one of the things we start to look at is in terms of the technology. You see there, I've got string inverter versus a panel-based inverter like the Enphase, or an optimizer like the Solar Edge. There's been a great combat between these different technologies, and it's great to see. Right now, for my buck, I really love the string inverters. The new MPPT optimizer, optimized algorithms really make a huge difference. Like it's really, really, really amazing. You don't get quite the module by module overview if you're really stuck on watching those, what panel's doing what, and do I need to replace something? Then for sure that's still the way to go. But on a dollar cost average, the string inverter is a very, very hard beast to beat right now. And so we have connection issues, Ontario Hydro approvals, royal pain in the behind. Local municipality approvals can be just, every single municipality has a different set of rules. So I can't tell anybody anything about that. And just because, heck, who knows? I mean, you just don't know. So sorry about that. So back to the basics here. So where does the value come from? Well, it's free power. Once your system's paid off, which if you have an electric car is around 3 years, because you're rolling in the gas savings off that vehicle. And then up to 8 years if you're just using electricity on a very basic level to run appliances in the house. So you can see here, this is a nice little diagram. It's got the disconnect. Excuse me. So there's the disconnect for the solar. So the solar is coming in here. It's going to the inverter. There's a switch to disconnect the inverter from the grid. And the new inverters are quite clever. They'll actually watch the flow of electrons. It's a phase reversal, and they'll automatically damp down so that they're just feeding the house loads. If you've already hit your max for what's allowed to go out to the grid, they'll control how much. So you're only sending your 10 kilowatts to the grid, and you're running your house loads, and they won't go over that. They won't push anything extra to the grid. And so there's a lot of very clever new technology that makes everything cheaper. You do have to watch a lot of things, rapid shutdown, GFCI, arc fault, et cetera, et cetera. So you have some extra, costs basically. All right, so that's sort of the basics of grid tie. It's, as you can see, it's pretty simple. Solar comes down off the roof, goes into an inverter, goes either into your home for your use and consumption, or goes tally-ho off to the grid, so that you can bank those kilowatts for your winter use. And so now we get into what's a hybrid, and a hybrid is essentially, you're adding a battery and you're usually adding a second inverter, and that's because of the battery, obviously. So here's your typical grid tie inverter. It's a Fronius. This is a European setup. Obviously, we see plastic boxes, not metal ones. And then you have a second inverter, which is your AC DC inverter, and it also acts as a charger. So the excess AC coming from the Fronius, not going to the grid, is used by the second inverter charger to charge the batteries, or you're using an MPPT controller to charge the batteries. A lot of people are using both. And the advantage to the MPPT controller is usually you get a better algorithm, basically, and you get a little more efficiency. It's all lithium batteries, unless you're really using your your battery as just a float device, and which is where the battery just sits there. And if you do get a power outage, now the battery gets used, then I don't recommend any battery other than the lithium batteries. You get longer life, you get lower maintenance, you get a far higher, about a 30% higher efficiency charge just on the discharge cycle. Excuse me. So let's just not even talk about lead acid, and we'll just say, yeah, get a lithium battery. So this is what a hybrid is. The battery lets you keep more power behind the grid, and offsets those nighttime loads, covers power outages, all the rest. So some of the new products that are out, because we're going to talk quickly about batteries. I just came off of a call today. This is the new Fortress Power product. It's available for, I'm going to say, about 900 Canadian. It's about $6.15 US per kilowatt hour. And these things are ridiculous. There's the eVault 18.5, goes up to 220 kilowatt storage. They've got a new eVault Max. It's almost 400 kilowatt storage. If you want to do something smaller, there's the eFlex. It's a 5.4 kilowatt, and you can put 18 of those together. So you can still build a really large battery pack. And the key is you want to be able to add, and that's the nice thing about lithium. You can add anytime. It doesn't matter if half your pack's 10 years old, you can still throw in new pack modules that are brand new, and you're not going to ruin you're not going to have the old batteries age your new batteries, essentially, which is what happens with lead. There's I'm stealing some stuff off the presentation I saw today. So what's the basic advantage to having the battery is, you're going to get to use more of your power behind the grid. So, it's backup, obviously, for when the grid is off. It allows you to have an additional amount of self-supply, and that's particularly important with some of the, especially if you're rural, and some of the grid connect. Some people, I know someone they got connected, they're only allowed to feed 3 kilowatts to the grid. That's not a lot. So, using a battery allows them to have a greater self-supply. So it maximizes PV power production, saves more money on your electric bill. Some people are actually using their batteries without solar, and they're just charged, because if you charge at night, it's 10 cents a kilowatt. And if you use it at peak time during the day, what is it now? It's like 22 cents, right? So if you're getting a 12-cent a kilowatt payback, your battery is going to pay for itself pretty quickly. And and then there's tax and incentives. The new government grants are $5,000 can go directly towards solar and battery. So it's a really, so there's some pretty decent incentives to use a battery. And so here, and this, obviously, this is showing into going to off-grid, and that's what we're going to talk about in a second. So who are the players? Generac has an amazing, it's the Pico system that came out, oh gee, a decade ago, and so they've got a new product. It's got all the CUL, UL stamps. So even the boxes that, there's a new UL designation for the box that goes around your battery, 9470 or something like that. So that's really wonderful, right? I mean, when you have more, it just means that when the ESA guy comes to approve your system, he's going to look at it. He's going to be able to tick all his little boxes. Your electrician isn't going to have to argue with him about anything. There's the Tesla, of course, Fortress Power. And I really want to give a happy hi-ho to Volthium. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. They're a new Quebec company, and they have built a really beautiful product. They've got it all really dialed. Part of the EcoFuel cohort that I was in last fall, I was helping a couple of guys try to build LiFePO4 battery manufacturing plants. And these guys have just really done an excellent job. And so anybody looking to buy a battery, have a very close look at Volthium or Voltium. They are available from Solacity in Kempville, and another organization that I tip my hat to and promote widely, and because they're doing an amazing job. Lots of great stuff there. And the idea is that we have a safe, tangible investment. Don't forget, this is one of the things people often overlook, is if you talk to your real estate agent and you ask them, what is that watt of solar power worth when it comes time for me to sell my home? Every kilowatt that you have on your roof, it translates to $5,000 to your home value. That's the way they do the math. And so if you think that you're installing it for 2,000, or maybe you put in a battery or 3,500, and you're going to get $5,000 return immediately, it's like a no-brainer. I can't understand why people aren't calling electricians every day saying, please install solar because I want to be worth more money. It's literally the best investment you can make right now. Quite remarkable. And in a minute, I'll learn how to use my mouse here to get the pages going the right way. So now we're going to get to off-grid. So you can really see we've covered the basics, right? I mean, we understand what a solar system is and how it fits together. So when we come to the off-grid specifics, it basically comes down to how much money do you want to spend. There's so many variables. So what I say to people is, what are you planning to use? Like, yes, use a fridge because you're going to save. I mean, your savings, just buying a propane fridge versus buying a regular fridge, boom, that's $22,000, $2,500 you're going to save. And then every year you're going to save, a propane fridge uses 1.5 pounds of propane a day. If you're out there, say 200 days of the year, and you're paying $1 a pound and plus hauling tanks and stuff, I mean, you can see the math adds up for a solar system really, really quickly. My off-grid farm, I paid for half my system in 5 years just off the savings on my fridge. So that's why we ask, where are you using it? So what are you using? What devices do you want to use? I mean, I had a dishwasher, a microwave, air conditioning, internet, blah, 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 blah. And that's because that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be, living in a cave or something, although I would have been happy living in a cave, as long as I had electricity and a dishwasher. And so where are you using it? Are you way up north? How many seasons are you going to be up there? This is going to guide a lot of the decisions you'll make about your system, especially on the cold, right? You have to be very careful about heat and cold. You get up north, you get into these minus 40-degree temperatures. I don't care what kind of battery system you've got, unless it's lithium titanate, you're going to have trouble with your batteries. I mean, lead acid's frozen solid, you can't touch it. Lithium, you can't use it below minus 30, and you can't charge it below 0. So heat, cold, your loads, idle time, and critters and theft. Really watch out for the critters. I'll tell you, They love chewing up cables. I still haven't got which way to turn that. So, so when we come to sizing, we look at the loads we want to carry. Also, think very carefully about reliability. Remember, your solar system is going to last. I've been pushing for 20, 25-year solar systems. I think with the lithium batteries, we're basically there. I've taken apart recently Schneider system that was 17 years old. The inverter was working fine. She replaced the inverter basically because it was a modified sine wave. All the new inverters are pure sine. And the modified sine is really hard on motors. So she got tired of replacing her fridge every 7 years, right? It just chewed the motor to pieces. Do you need a generator supplement? Absolutely. Have to have a generator supplement if you're going into the late fall in Canada, or at least in Eastern Ontario. Our cloud, the story I always tell is the day in the November where I made 5 watts of power total the entire day. And then in January, it was snowing and I made 400 watts. And it's just, that's how thick the cloud is in Ontario. So you have to have a generator, or you really go into, mini power mode, and that can be difficult. So, and on safety, I just want to remind people, the electrical code is our friend and ally. The one proviso I'll put there, Canada is a tiny, tiny market, and yet we've got our own standards and stamps. And unfortunately, it means we don't get the best equipment. When I think about like Victron Quattro inverters, probably, pretty much the best inverter you can buy these days. And, but we can't buy them here. We can't use them because they don't have a CUL. So I tend to lean into the marine RV code at that point. You can see I've adapted this from the my tiny home presentation, because there it is, particularly useful for tiny homes. And yeah, that's the case there. You can see the sun's coming through the window now. So I apologize for my blazing brightness. So let's go with solar panels. So for off-grid solar panels, you can put them, are they portable if you're only going up a couple months of the year? Do you put them on your roof, or do you put them on the ground? And I really recommend people do ground mount for off-grid. And that's basically because you can sweep the panels in the wintertime. And quite often, with the higher voltages that we can run, you can easily buy a solar controller that runs 250 volts. So every volt that your solar controller will run is basically worth about a foot of free distance. So a 250 easily be 250 feet from the cottage. If you want to run 2 lines, 500 feet, or a 600 volt solar controller, now you're 1,000 feet or 300 meters from your cottage. You can put your panels almost anywhere now. So I do typically recommend ground mount for off-grid. Okay, now where are you going to put all your components? Are you going to build a solar shed? You're going to put it under the home, in a box, in a closet, all of the above. I'm a big fan of solar sheds. Just, keeps everything out of the house, basically. And we'll get to that in a second too. You're going to have to be thinking about venting, not so much anymore but now more about temperature control. You want to keep the batteries warm in the wintertime, and you want to keep your inverter cool in the summertime. So we have these climate seasonal issues. So just remember to keep those, those thoughts in mind. Then we come to battery placement. So with battery placement, we have access for monitoring. Less and less important. More and more stuff's on Bluetooth now, so you can monitor your batteries from Australia. And temperature control, distance from the solar controller and the inverter. Obviously, the closer your batteries are to the solar controller and inverter, the better. Just because the voltages, you bring 600 volts off your rooftop and you turn it into 50 volts at your battery, the amperage is going to hugely increase, obviously. And amps means big pipe. The higher the amp number, the bigger the pipe. So that kind of cable can get pretty expensive. So, we keep our batteries usually within about 50 feet or 55 feet of the solar controller and inverter. And I'm going to talk quickly about safety. Fire, theft, critters, heat and cold. Fire is a key one, especially when you get into some of the lithium technologies. You really do want to be thinking about, it's not that the batteries are going to catch on fire, but what happens if the fire gets to the batteries? And then you got to remember those batteries are big canisters of flammable material. So you really do want your batteries in a metal box, a really durable metal box. You know, I've seen people use concrete board from showers, you know, concrete bricks, all the rest. You're just trying to make sure your family has time to get out of the cottage. And it's one of the reasons I continue to recommend solar sheds. So there we go. Where are we doing? Oh, here we go. And then component placement. This is a really snazzy system. I love the Victron equipment. You know, it's got a lot of extra controls and stuff. And so we have access for monitoring and control. I mean, not everybody's going to have a Quattro where they can go online and just go bip, bip, bip and turn their stuff off and on. You also have to think about moisture and dust. You know, obviously you want to keep the equipment dry. Not always possible on a boat, you know, sometimes the things happen. So that's another thing. If you are doing RV or boat systems, you be really, really careful about the inverter you choose and the solar controller. You really want something that can handle moisture and dust better, like the Victron. And in particular, the vibration. You know, there was a really nice Chinese company that was making beautiful stuff for the RV market. And they had a problem with their main component board. So they changed to a quadro, four deep, you know, a really thick component board and to handle the vibration. And of course, nobody changed the size of the stud that the board went on top of. And so the lock nut no longer, it's still nutted on, you know, you can still screw the nut on, but the lock portion didn't make it to the stud thread. And of course, they all came apart and blew up when they were actually installed. So be really careful about thinking about reliability. 10 or 15 or even 30 or 50% or double the price now, a lot better than later on. So, you know, so again, distance from the solar panels, distance to battery, and Bluetooth and internet connectivity control and reporting. You know, a couple months back, I got a Bluetooth report from a guy in the far north. We're talking about 1,500 miles away. I was able to diagnose his problem immediately. It was a very, very simple fix, and I won't say anything because, you know, I don't want to. It was very simple, and that's it. So we've pretty much covered everything. Some final considerations I'm going to make are: the sooner you start, the sooner your power is free. If you've got an 8-year payback, we're at year 10 now. We're paid back. So essentially our power, you know, a big chunk of our power is free if you don't include the car. And adding heat and cooling electrically just makes fantastic economic sense, particularly tied with solar. So I can't recommend it enough. Electric car, I mean, good grief. You know, when you cut your car costs by carrying car costs by a tenth or you know, to a tenth or to 1/6 of what you were paying, it adds up to a lot of money. So again, I do recognize, you know, electric cars are still a bit expensive. And so yes, you can support the grid. And this is the other thing that we often overlook is these investments that we make in solar and, you know, and basically making ourselves more independent and free from, you know, the powers, the oppressive powers that be. It also benefits your neighbor. It benefits Ontario Hydro. They don't need the heavy duty transmission lines. Solar with battery is turning out to be a great stabilizer of the grid frequency. I mean, there's just a lot of benefits to this new distributed network of power that we're building and solar with battery. So it's a great societal benefit, and we should recognize that and remember that. You also save a gobsmack worth of money. I mean, you're going to put your kids through college and university with the money you save, you know, times 10, and you get to, you know, make Greta happy, right? We are saving the planet. You know, As the Norwegian study pointed out a couple months ago, 70% of CO2 production is directly in your hands to control. You don't have to beg, borrow, or plead with anybody. You can do it with your own decisions. And so, you know, things like heat pumps, electric cars, solar, they're just ways of saving the planet. And that's about it. So my name's Kelvin. I'm a green energy advocate. You know, I've started a little project called greendavid.ca. It's just on standing on its first feet. So please come and have a look at what we're doing and where we're going. It'll be changing more as the season goes by. I just had an unbelievable spring. I literally sold 2 years worth of products in the last 6 weeks. So I apologize if I'm a little winded here. We're doing a really cool soil regeneration project with fungi, reintroducing fungi into this new no-till. Well, not new, it's been going on out west since the 90s, but the new no-till farming and reintroducing different fungi with grasslands and forests, and really, really fun project. And we're just getting started on that. And then of course, Bobolink Solar, for anybody who's interested in solar. Haven't had a lot of time to update the website in a couple of years now, but please stick around for what we're doing and feel free to join us. And that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, we had a few coming through to chat there, Kelvin. Thanks so much for a great presentation. Some great takeaways there. You know, I think people are really interested to know, you know, all about adding solar, and that sort of 5,000 per kilowatt is a really interesting number. And especially as we get into, you know, the federal grant and the new City of Ottawa Better Home Loan Program, I think that's going to be a bit of a game changer for those around. I know Emily's got a bit of a question, so maybe we'll roll to her after, but we had one in chat from Scott, and we had quite a bit of discussion on thoughts around EV vehicles to home as a cost-effective substitute for separate batteries. Can you say a little bit about that?
So that's a developing technology. I'm really interested to see how it works out. You know, in this time of COVID, what would have been better? That we could plug our electric car in and have you know, a 70 kilowatt battery on tap. That would have been delightful. But at the same time, you know, if people are commuting to work 5 days of the week, you're taking your battery during peak production time away. And also let's look at what's happening to battery prices. I mean, right now the retail price in Canada for a really high quality lithium battery is about $650. It's actually I've been waiting for that $500 point, and some of you know, Colin, I'm not going to mention any names. I do repurpose electric car batteries as solar energy storage, and the price is just at the point where, you know, why, right? I mean, you can buy these amazing batteries for a few extra dollars now, and dropping with some indications that maybe as much as a half again over the next few years. So I think, honestly, the battery technology and the different, not just batteries, but the different storage technologies are going to develop so quickly. I don't think that'll, you know, that will, I mean, your battery will be in your car, and that'll probably be its main use.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see. I know there are a few projects going on there, so you know, we'll stay tuned and hopefully get everybody into their EVs, and then they can start using that as a battery too. So there was a little bit in chat about roof systems versus ground systems. Chris Weisfall is wondering, can you expand a little bit on the Ontario regulations around the installation of ground mounts on residential properties?
So unfortunately, you know, I'm not going to be able to add a lot of value here. When did the changes? There were some changes not so long ago. It used to be you had to have a 10-meter setback from your property line to do a ground mount. And that just, you know, 10 meters, that's 30 feet for most people. That meant, you know, unless you're like way out in the boonies and have a 40-acre property, that really killed a lot of ground mounts. And that's why a lot of people went with rooftop. I believe, and please don't hold me to this, but I believe the new setback is 1 meter. So in that sense, that's one of the reasons I really like ground mount. It is more expensive to put up there, but if you are really keen on getting that wintertime production, then, obviously a ground mount is just, you get out there with your broom and you sweep your panels off. It's not a big issue.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's great. I know you work a little bit around used electric vehicle batteries. So can you talk a little bit about some of your work there? And is that something you're still doing and still advocating that people do, or are the new batteries sort of coming down in price enough?
So, this isn't my decision to make. People get to make up their own minds about these things. So by the time so for one of the battery production lines we were looking at, we had basically an electric bus company would give us the batteries, okay? So we're getting the batteries for free. But by the time you tear the battery pack apart, pull the cells out, test them, reassemble them, you were 2.5 hours of labor on every kilowatt. Well, now your labor cost, by the time you've added in the factory floor, yada, 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 you're around $150. And so where at that point, when you can buy brand new cells at a wholesale level at honestly less than that, now that's in China, not, made it to our shores, where is the value there, right? And so, and so this has become the issue. Like when I repurpose a battery, the amount of work that goes into repurposing that battery is quite substantial. And so, at one point I have to say, well, is it worth me spending 6 hours repurposing this battery when I can spend 20 minutes going click on and then rip when it gets here, and using a brand new battery with, in the case of Volthium, it's one of the better BMSs I've seen. Same with Fortress, and I'm quite sure that Generac and Telstra have excellent BMSs as well. So, and the disconnects built in, the fuses are built in, circuit breakers built in. The box is already the 9470 or whatever number it was. It starts with a 9 anyway. The box is already approved. Why try to rebuild all that stuff? And when it's, when for a few extra dollars, particularly when, like, your battery isn't the main cost component on your system, labor is. And then so solar panels have plummeted in price. If you're doing rooftop solar, the racking costs, you can't buy aluminum for the price that they sell the racking for. So all these costs are add up. But even if you double the price of your battery, what are you adding? 15% to the cost of your system? I mean, to me, I'm just at the point of transition. Like I'm saying, okay, we can still do a repurposed battery for less than you can buy one, but the use case is, the value proposition is getting vanishingly small, and I'm quite sure by this time next year, unless you're purely DIY, doing all the labor yourself, I'll be really shocked if you aren't better off just going down to Salasby and buying a battery pack.
Yeah, no, definitely the technologies, the costs are starting to come down, and we're going to hear a little bit more next month at Green Drinks July about some of the battery technologies. So thanks so much there. Can we talk a little bit about inverters now? I know pretty soon there's going to be sort of DC to DC inverters and advance in inverter technology. So what are you looking for as the inverters start to advance in technology as well? Will that be something that you advocate to your clients?
So the inverters we have now, so when you go to build your off-grid system, and I'm pointing mostly to the RV boat people here, try to stay, 12 is definitely out. I would never put anything more than maybe an 800-watt inverter on a 12-volt system. 24, yeah, did you get a great deal on the battery, is what I would say to you. But, so 48 is kind of where we start. When we get into the home systems are already going to like 360, 380. And the reason the higher voltage is better is you really reduce your overall costs, right? I mean, I can run at 600 volts, I can run several thousand watts of power on a cable this thick for like, quarter of a mile with virtually no, under 2% voltage drop. And you try to do that on a 24 volt system. And, I did this is 2 years back. I went out, they built their system just before MPPT controllers really came out. And so they were using a pulse width modulated. I know people don't understand what that is, and I won't explain it. But what it meant was she spent $1,500 on cable that was fat enough and long enough to go from her solar shed to her house to carry the 24 volt power from her solar panels and that solar controllers. And that was, today, your cost would be 75 cents a foot. It was about so for 75, $100, you can run that same cable. And so this is the thing with the inverters too. The new inverters, are so efficient. Like we're seeing 95% on an AC DC inverter now. And with some of the new chips that are coming out and the new technologies, on straight DC to AC and then into the grid, we're around 99%. So when it's like 1 or 2% to a loss to charge a battery and then get it back from the battery, I mean, the new inverters are amazing, wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's great to see the technology coming along. And I know you sell a lot of the sort of technology on the website there, the bubblelinksolar.com. So what are some of the considerations if people are looking to do sort of a DIY system at home or at the cottage? What are some of the things that people need to sort of start out to think about if they kind of want to do it themselves?
So, safety first, and just be aware that, especially with a lot of the new technology, so just as an example, there's 2 ways to clamp wire used by most electrical devices. One is a little screw that has a point, and it's really for the North American market. It's because we use like single strand, 7 strand, 9 strand wire, this cheap junky wire that just isn't very flexible. And so you need that screw to sort of hammer down into the wire to get a good contact. But the most of the new equipment now is using it's 2 little flat bars that pinch together. And you can't use that single strand or 7 strand or 9 strand because you're not going to be able to reliably get a solid connection. So we get into this super fine, super stranded wire. And so now you have to be really careful. So if you're putting a little pointy thing into a super stranded wire, you can get one little super strand go up into your threads, and it'll totally change the torque profile of that screw. And so now you could be in a situation where you didn't clamp your wire properly, right? So just be aware, if you're DIYing, do your research, try to get the best quality equipment. I know the super stranded beautiful wires, $3 a foot. Pay the $3 a foot, and don't cheap out on, because when you're DIYing, sometimes it's, and I'm saying this completely out of my own experience, it's really easy to cheap out in the wrong spot. And the guy who's telling you this and saying this is the guy whose inverter blew up 2 weeks before Christmas and shivered in the dark, or would have shivered in the dark. Except that he had great friends in Ottawa that let him come stay with him for Christmas. And that's why I addressed the issue of reliability quite early on.
Yeah, no, that's important and great to be upfront about the perils of doing something like that. Pamela, I had a question from Pamela. She's wondering, am I understanding correctly that if you have solar tied to the grid with net metering, that with a hydropower outage in your area, your solar does not work for your dwelling?
Okay, so that can be a yes and no. So I want to be really careful here. So I'm going to treat this as hypothetical. So hypothetically, the power goes out, but you've got a brand new Fronius that senses which way the power is going. If you had a house load and the sun was shining, you would still be able to run that house load. because the Fronius is not going to send any more power out other than what the house load requires. So there is no power going to the grid. So theoretically, that could be the case. But unless you have a battery, unless you have a second inverter, yes, your power is going to be out as well as your neighbors, even though you're making, 10, 15, 25 kilowatts up on the roof.
Yeah, good case to invest in the battery technology at the same time as you do solar, for sure.
And there's the new technology that's available today and coming is just, I mean, it's gobsmackingly good. We're just so really, really, really fortunate.
And so I know you're a busy guy, but if people want to contact you with some questions about their own thing, do you do some consulting work? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me through Bobolink Solar. There's a bunch of contact forms and stuff there. I can't promise. So what I'm trying to develop, and if anybody has some volunteer time, I'm going to be pushing sort of Bobolink more into an educational / consulting role, support role, and so we are looking to develop. I've been trying to get a forum up for years because every single one of my customers would have loved to have been able to go to a forum, if only to get the answers I haven't had the time to get back to them with. And so we're going to try to get more and more sort of ease of use and educational stuff up on Bobolink for sure.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe a bit of an academy or something where people can subscribe into. Love that idea. Well, thanks so much, Kelvin. Hang tight. We may have some follow-up questions in a little moment. I'll let you have a little bit of a break and get some water in there. But hang tight because we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion with Roderick. Next up, I do want to bring in one of our other members who's working in the solar field as well. We've got Pete Basso from Demand Renewables. We do have a few different members working in the solar field, so I'm going to put a link to our member page, and let's bring in Pete to talk a little bit about Demand, some of the projects they're doing, and what they offer. Thanks, Pete, for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you bringing me in and asking me to say a few words. So I certainly don't have a presentation put together like the other two groups, but I think I can say the information that was shared was very interesting and quite informative. So well done. A couple of things I guess I wanted to bring up for people who are looking at doing their own sort of thing and getting do-it-yourself systems or any of these other things. I think it's really important to look at the certifications on the equipment. I think I guess I can't really stress that enough. I mean, these systems that are 48 volt and higher, I mean, these things can kill you very easily. So it's important to be extremely safe. Use the correct wiring. Use things that, like I said, have look for certifications and things like that. I think that's very important. Certainly belies the quality of the equipment as well. So that's something that I would stress. We were talking a little bit about batteries earlier. I think it's important to talk a little bit about the difference between some of the battery systems. I think certainly there's another good company in Ontario that's working in the battery market, and that's EV Fern. And I think we should mention them. I think they've done a nice job and presented us some really good information. So they're also somebody that you can look at. And then from a battery perspective, we like to offer a battery called the LG Chem Resi product, which is a DC coupled battery. So there's a bit of a difference between AC and DC coupling. DC coupled battery, the energy comes directly off the roof and into the battery without having a conversion. If you've got something like the Powerwall, you've got to convert the energy through sort of an inverter. Then it goes back to DC to get stored in the battery, and then it has to get converted again to be used in your home in the AC. So there's some efficiency losses there. So I think that's important to note. So just do your due diligence on that. Like I said, we've partnered with LG Chem. They offer a fantastic solution, a battery solution with number of different safety and options and sizing features that can be offered. I think that's really, I guess, I want to talk, I guess, a little bit. I just got some notes here, I guess, even just about warranties and things like that as well. I think warranties are also very important. I think if you're going to be looking at equipment, you should be expecting, if you're looking at inverters, you can get 20, even 25 years inverter warranties now, which is something that's great. Something else that Calvin mentioned was the efficiency on inverters. I think you can expect top tier equipment to have a 99% efficiency now. So that's the conversion from DC to AC energy. So that's, when you're looking at the really sort of top tier equipment, the equipment you can expect in the market now, I think that you should be looking at that. You should be looking at, from a panel perspective, the top tier panels, you can even get in excess of, 90%, 90% of performance at 25 years from day one. Certainly 85% is something that you should be striving for, at least in the panels that you purchase. So just some things that you need to be asking when you're talking to your solar contractor and when you're looking at equipment. And that's, I guess if we're, I'm talking about demand renewables here, that's the kind of stuff that we only offer in the market. If you're looking at really sort of top tier stuff, I think it's important to understand what you're getting and, have somebody with experience and understanding to put together a system for you that makes the most sense and gives you the longest long-term security of your investment and operation of your system. So yeah, I mean, that's the type of equipment that we offer. And those are really just kind of a couple of the comments that I wanted to make. So yeah, good job, gentlemen, on the presentations and stuff. Very informative and yeah, nice work.
Thanks so much, Pete. Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping in with a few words about demand. I did share the website there, link for people in this chat, so people can check that out. Appreciate you coming in and all the hard work you guys are doing there. So we have about 20 minutes left, so happy to take some follow-up questions. If people do, they want to raise their hand, I can unmute them so you can kind of ask your follow-up questions. I know we had a couple in chat that Roderick was sort of jumping on. Roderick, Brent was wondering, do any of the participants know if the federal government is going to give consideration for audits? They had panels installed in March and an energy audit mid-2020 and had a new one yesterday. So Roderick, did you want to jump in with some
well, I thought he was talking about like the cost of audits and subsidy there, but he said he's not concerned about that, rather the timing. Maybe he means like if you get an audit, how long is it good for? I'm not really sure. I was looking for Steven to see if he was on the call. Maybe he could answer that. At least if I interpreted his question properly.
I think I can answer that a little bit. I think the audit has to be relevant for the current program. The audit has to have been done before April 2020, I think is what they're saying. So between April 2020 and now, it's still relevant. Or else you need another one. And again, the government is offering a $600 value audit as part of the grant program. So if you've got it done before that, you can certainly jump in and get one now as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Robin was also wondering, any insights, links into the home energy audit tools?
And I can take a little bit of that as well. Just we're also doing the I guess getting the certifications to be doing audits and things like that ourselves. But I mean, in terms of tools, and I guess those are really there's a number of tools that are used by the auditors. The HOT 2000 model is put together of the building, which is it's a very extensive modeling of the not only just the equipment in the building, but the building structure itself. It really focuses on that. So going through the courses recently, I can tell you that you have to model your your entire house, the exterior structure, the interior, what sort of I guess moisture and air barrier or management you've got in your system, ventilation, equipments like that. It's all done with a HOT 2000 software. But I don't know that that's readily available to anybody except for the Enerking auditors.
That's great. And Kelvin, you wanted to just jump in with a comment there you had in chat? Oh, no, you were good. Okay, you just wanted to mention it was backdated to December 2020. So we know everybody's excited about the greener homes. It's launched now. You can get logged in. Highly recommend to make a get logged into the portal. Get a link going. Stefan, one of our latest members from HomeSol, is on the call. Stefan, did you want to jump in for some comments there around the auditing process?
Yeah, so the Greener Homes program has been launched, but it's a bit of a slow start. And I can seem to be having a bit of issues with the portal and stuff like that. So as long as you're not in a hurry, then there's still plenty of time. My understanding is that once you do the initial audit, then you've got, there's no determined time, but they say, if you do the secondary audit in about 2 years, then that's pretty good. But there's no deadline. And as it was mentioned before, any previous audit that was done last year could qualify for the grant, but you may not qualify for the compensation for the audit. So that's $600. So that's just the caveat there. And then to the point of auditing software or spreadsheets in Australia, it's difficult to know exactly what's available there. HOT 2000's good for Canada, but not really for Australia. If you're going for sort of net zero approaches, then I know the passive house movement is growing rapidly in Australia, especially in the Melbourne area and Canberra, but all across Australia. So that would be a good place to go if you can link up with a passive house consultant over there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stefan. And I just shared the HomeSol website there for everybody. I know people were keen to see where they can get home energy audits. So that's a good spot to start. HomeSol's a local solution. They're operating in Ontario and out east in Nova Scotia. So reach out to them, and you may have Stefan in your backyard and doing a blower door test shortly, right? And get you all set up for that grant. I believe it was a passive house there. Yeah. So yeah, you're good there. So want to use the rest of the time. And if anybody has any other questions or anything, go ahead, raise your hand or add them into chat. Stefan, did you have a quick comment on that?
Sorry, I was distracted trying to get something else going. What was the question?
The question was that a passive house? Robin was wondering.
Was that a passive house? What is a passive house? Passive house is a international standard. I think that's passivehouseaustralia.org. There's also a really cool website right now called Passive House Accelerator. Passive house is a standard that actually originated from Canada, but then the Germans developed it and created this passive house standard, which is a really stringent standard based on energy. And then it's now global, and it's even reached down to Australia. In the US, it's also FIAS, which has a climate specific standard, and it's all about really reducing the energy demands of the house for space heating and space cooling.
That's
I'm taking the thermal enclosure first. So lots of insulation, super airtight, great windows, great ventilation, and then you don't need too much auxiliary heat or cooling after that. And then actually, when you get to a passive house level, you can use the house as a battery to a certain extent. So passive house is the first step, and then you add solar to it, and then you've got a great performing house that is highly resilient.
That's great. No, exciting. And we hope to see more of those homes popping up around Ottawa and all around the world, even in Australia, right? So thanks so much. So want to kind of go through the panel here and ask, what is standing in the way from the widespread adoption of solar? When I go to places like Hawaii and California, I see solar all over the place. It's 1 in 3 homes. I'm wondering why haven't we achieved that in Ottawa? And Pete and Stefan, you can definitely jump in. Maybe we'll start start with Roderick, we'll go to Kelvin, and then we'll sort of round it with you guys. You know, talk a little bit about the net metering fee. I know it's a bit of a hot button issue with Hydro Ottawa. They're still charging $15 a month as a net metering fee, which we see as a bit of an impediment. I know that it's an admin fee, but Roderick, do you think it's just the fee? I mean, what's stopping people from going more solar right now?
I think it's primarily electricity rates. Here in Canada, we actually have low rates. There's a couple of provinces out east that pay a higher rate, but nothing like Hawaii where you're paying like, what, 50 cents per kilowatt hour. And in parts of the States, like down in Boston, New York, it's like 35 cents per kilowatt hour. We do have a pretty green system in terms of electrical system. And that's another factor. Maybe not everywhere in Canada, but at least in Ontario and Quebec for sure. It's pretty green already. So there isn't a huge carbon reason to not draw electricity from the grid. Whereas, you know, again, down the States, they don't have a lot of hydro. They do use more coal, that kind of thing. So it's not as green. So I think those two issues are the primary ones, but other people may have different opinions.
Yeah, could I just step in and comment on that? It's it's a problem that's been around for a very long time, and that is with the grid management. And in Ontario, it's the IESO. They, if you take a look at the investments that Ontario has made in the billions of dollars in terms of hydro and nuclear and all the transmission lines, it's huge. And the concept of having every home generating power enough to, say, offset even 50% of their consumption means that those people who don't have solar are going to end up carrying most of the load to pay for all this infrastructure that's in place. So in fact, the IESO has been dragging its feet for years and not really encouraging the use of solar. And particularly, they don't increase or encourage the use of distributed energy resources. And, you know, you just have to look back in history not too long ago where they canceled some windmills that were going up in Prince Edward County. And there's a number of examples where it is the bureaucracy of the already invested money that they do not want to see stranded. So that's a policy issue. And I do see some cracks in that happening. And in fact, there's a webinar on the 22nd of this month, which is being put forward by the IESO. I've been a member of the stakeholders group for some years now, and very frustrating at times because I want to participate in this. I think we all do. And every household should have the opportunity to in fact join into community grids and build in resilience, and as well as efficiency, reduce cost, as well as you know, the survivability the next time we get tornadoes that are taking the grid out, or ice storms, or what have they. So do not think that the bureaucracy is on your side. It isn't, but it's starting to move that direction though.
Oh, great points, Art. Yeah, no, really well said. Kelvin, did you have any thoughts on why we don't see more solar everywhere? What's stopping the adoption?
So, Art, I have to agree with you 100%. The entrenched bureaucracies and processes, I mean, they're going to build or refurbish Darlington and some of the other, talking about some of the other nuclear plants. And the cost of that is just, I mean, it'll take 20 years and they could replace that with solar for, you know, far less money in 2 years. And that's an argument that, you know, we've had around the Christmas dinner table for some time, and it's really it's kind of sad. But there's, on a structural level, I mean, call your electrician, ask him to come out and install a solar system. I mean, try to find a guy to come out and put panels on your roof. There are no trades out there. They're you know, they're talking about in Maryland, you have to have an electrician install your solar panels on your roof. I mean, how ludicrous is that? And, you know, I've been talking with Chris at Algonquin College for the longest time, since 2017. You know, how can we get some of these building trades to at least put a 2-week program for solar installation into their courses? And it just doesn't happen. So you know, the structural issues are there, both on you know, the government side making excess demands. You know, this idea that, you know, Canada's this huge market where we can have our own code specifications and it's not going to cost us thousands of dollars. I mean, when you can buy the exact same product in another market for a half the price of, or even a tenth the price of what you pay for that product in Canada, that really tells you something. But also, it really is, people aren't getting the message. You're still seeing people say it's a 20-year payback. Oh, you'll never get your money back, and that's just not true. The real cost payback now is much shorter. Prices have plummeted. If you have people who are installing at a volume rate, they can put it up for a sauce, 25 kilowatts, done at $2 a watt just recently. And so it can be done, and at a cost-effective point, and the payback isn't that long, particularly with an electric car and with electric home heating and cooling. So you know, the value proposition's there. It's people aren't doing it, and I'm sorry to say, but it's really true. There's tons and tons of research that shows that by the time you get 5 people in a neighborhood with solar, that neighborhood cascades. You know, it's not 5, it's 500 the next year. And so that's really, we are not getting to the cascade point. And there's a variety of structural reasons, but you know, come on, you have to take responsibility as an adult for your behavior at some point. And so, you know, how many homeowners are putting solar on their roofs? I mean, you hear all the excuses, but I see very little action. And that's really the key point. You know, if we want change, you know, it doesn't hurt if we drive it. So.
Yeah, great
Calvin,
point.
just a couple points, if
Thanks,
I may,
Chris.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25 kilowatts is requiring a connection impact assessment, which might be somewhere between $7,000 and $11,000 to do, right?
No,
just a second.
Sorry,
just a second.
I'll address that.
Yeah, I know you will, but just give me a second here. There is that, and the other thing is that most roofs will not take a full 10 kilowatt system. Maybe they will now, not back 8 years ago when we were doing it, but you might be able to squeeze in 10 kilowatts now. And then there are the, you know, you may have to go to a volume installer in order to get your cost per watt down to the $2 range. You know, some people value local businesses and the relationship with the local guy who they know can come back and support you. So I just want to say that there are pros and cons, and I'm not quite so sure about the 25K. Maybe if you have 25K and you limit your export to 10 kilowatts, that's probably what you're talking about there. But then you get into different economics, because there'll be lots of times when you'll be generating the full 25K, but you can only export 10. You may only be using up 2 or 3 of your own kilowatts. So I think you're presenting a pretty simplified and cheerful picture. And I'm an environmental supporter myself. But what I just want to say is that you got to look at this in the more generalized application. And most people are not going to have room on the roof for 25K. And they probably won't get the economic benefit of that full, you know, $50,000-$60,000 system.
Let's go over to Kelvin for rebuttal, and I think Art's got some comments. Kelvin.
Chris, you know, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said 8 years. I think you really do have to address the changes in technology that have occurred in the last 8 years. And again, I don't think that the $2 a watt necessarily negates using a local. You know, you can still have the, you know, if these guys would work together, you know, if a roofer would go to an electrician and say, hey, look, I'll do all the panels on the roof and you do all the electrical installs, you know, then you'd be able to have a more synergistic approach. But, you know, the electrician, he wants to do everything. So he's going to hire a roofer to come in and do his roofing installs for him and build in all this extra layer of fat or, you know, complexity, which costs money, right? So no, I hear what you're saying, but I think modern pricing has just dropped so much, and the cost of things has come down so much. But you're absolutely right. This guy did 25K kilowatts. He's an engineer. I mean, the guy built his own air to water heat pump, for heaven's sakes. So it is a different situation, but at the same time, he's 10 kilowatts to the grid, 15 kilowatts behind the grid. It's an all electric house. He's got an elevator, he's got heat pumps, he's got watering, you know, a rain system for putting out fires, or a fire suppression system. I mean, it's a state-of-the-art house that consumes a lot of electricity. So, and he doesn't care that if he generates too much power, he's subsidizing his neighbor's power use. He's okay with that. You know,
what type of batteries does he have installed for that?
And you know, he's the, you know, when I talk about people who just float their batteries, he's just floating a lead acid pack. It's an AGM pack. Honestly, if he was using it, you know, what, a 2.5 to 5 year lifespan, right?
No, that's great, and good points about the skilled tradespeople. Art had a few comments. Over to you, Art.
Yeah. I want to say that my house was built in 2002, and I was in a retrofit situation. I have 15 kilowatts on the roof. The roof took it just fine. Of that 15 kilowatts, 10 kilowatts are with microfit, and I know that microfit is no longer being licensed, but I made it before it disappeared. And the other 5 is net metering. Therefore, I run my house mainly off the 5 kilowatts because I'm selling the 10 kilowatts to the grid. Now, I'm really glad, Kevin, that you brought up the payback, because this has been my experience as well. And I thought, I mean, nobody has, you know, the amount of money sitting in their pocket that one has to invest to get there. But when you start considering that I am not buying electricity, I am not buying natural gas, I am not buying gasoline, and I'm running all electric, now that's money that is building up in the bank, as it were, because I'm not spending it. And I kind of look at it as saying it's a return on investment, and it's tax-free. The government is not going to charge me taxes for money I didn't spend. And I can't think of a better investment. And the rate at which that builds up, and I've managed to pay down my capital expenditures in 3 years. And I got to the point where I was in an embarrassment of riches. What am I going to do with all this extra money? So I went and bought a Tesla Model 3, and I fixed it.
Well, it's a good problem to have, Art. Thanks so much. No, that's great. Great to hear. Pete and Stefan, I wanted to see if you had any comments about the why aren't we seeing more solar out there?
I got some, I guess. I'd like to make a few comments. You know, I think certainly the grid capacity question comment has been brought up a number of times. And I think we're seeing issues with grid capacity in big urban centers like Pickering now in certain areas. So in certain lines for Hydro One. So we've actually started a project directly with Hydro One to develop a number of test sites to increase the, whether they're saying it's a sort of a 7% rule, but it's really kind of a 1/3 rule. They're just allowing a certain amount of percentage of renewable energy project onto the grid. Well, we've worked with our inverter supplier, and because they offer such an advanced software package that and inverter that we're able to develop. We're working on developing a code specifically for Ontario, where we're going to essentially, increase significantly the capacity that we're able to put on the grid. So we're very excited about that, and we're actually developing test plans and test sites with them directly now, which is great. So hopefully this grid capacity question becomes less of an issue as we move forward with utilizing the sophistication of the inverters that are available now, because a lot of the capacity questions are and issues are being brought about by misinformation or a misunderstanding of the sophistication of the equipment that's available now. So that's one thing. And I think if we're talking about adoption, it's not just looking at the LDCs. I can tell you right now, for instance, we're doing a project in Pickering. Well, in Ontario or in Ottawa, as long as we get a structural analysis done on the home, and then we work with the LDC, we can get a PV system installed. Well, in Pickering, I'm working with their build plan department because we actually need a build permit, which isn't required in Ottawa, for instance, or in a number of communities around the GTA. But in Pickering specifically, they're asking me for this is the build department. They're asking me for a site plan showing property lines, all buildings and structures on the property, location of system, right of setbacks, easements and utilities, rights of way, an architectural roof plan with equipment location, egress path, and other dimensional criteria, size and weight of system, components as required, structural assessment, of course, and all the manufacturer data, this long Schedule 1 form, all for a roof mount, less than 10 kilowatt PV system. So I think we're seeing that there is part of the issue is that we don't have a standardization in process. So I think what would be a significant benefit to not only Ontario, but in Canada in general, but certainly in Ontario, is if we were to say, to have a standard LDC application process where, each, Hydro Ottawa, Hydro One, wherever it is, we've got an application that everybody kind of agrees upon, whether it's structured with the OEB or how it works. So that there's one application, and then in terms of the building department or build permit side of things, there's one application there, so that it's the same across each municipality and LDC, because it's almost different across towns now. And it's, when we're looking at trying to get these systems in, there's such we're probably going to not work in Pickering for a little while until we get this figured out, and it's unfortunate because we've got a number of clients that are wanting to come through there. So I think there is a significant red tape portion to this. And then you already mentioned Hydro Ottawa specifically. It's like around a $14 fee. It was $19 most recently, but we've gotten, I guess we've argued enough with them to get that down to $14, $15. And because we don't think it's fair, we're actually paying that for 2 years for our clients, because we don't think that it's the right thing. And we're working on trying to get that resolved as well. So I think there's a number of reasons why the adoption isn't as high. And I think a lot of it, a very significant amount, has to do with red tape and how difficult it is for us to get a system installed. It's madness in certain areas, really.
Yeah, great points, Pete, and great job you guys are doing at Demand to help promote and bring that on. So well done there. Stefan, I know you're doing a lot of home energy audits where you're sort of recommending solar to people. Why do you think that more people aren't sort of pulling the trigger on solar?
You know what? It's probably a lot of lack of education and misconception, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that leads to it. Some people it's aesthetics. Some people it's in their neighborhood, they can't put it on the front of the house where it might be facing south. So it's tons of stuff that go towards it. But I think now with the grants that is available with the Greener Homes program, it's going to be a really, it makes a feasibility study that much better. And with the CMHC $40,000 interest-free loan coming and the Better Home Loan program, I think we'll see a lot more of it happen. Obviously, when I do my audits, I try to aim for the thermal enclosure upgrades first, and then go to mechanicals, and then go to solar. But sometimes it just makes sense just to go straight to solar. And there are many houses in the Ottawa area that are on either oil or electricity, and so it would make a lot of sense to go to heat pumps and add solar to it. It just there's a great synergy there. So yeah, the next 5 years, I think solar contractors are going to get very busy.
Yeah, no, great points, Stefan. Chris Whiteflaw, did you want to jump in on some comments there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that if you look at rather than these outlier examples, but if you look at the average house and you say you get a house in a neighborhood, say in Barhaven or whatever, and you can get 10 kilowatts on the roof, and that house is using a good 12,000 kilowatt hours a year. You know, that's the size of an average output of a 10K system. Then that 10K system costs about $25,000. You're net metering. And so if you're net metering, you're paying about $400 or $500 a year, and you're saving maybe, I'm going to guess, what is it, maybe $1,200 or $1,400 a year. So 25,000 to save $1,400 a year at the best, I think. That's those are the economics. But like what Stefan just said, the fact that you can now borrow that money with zero interest, and you get the 5,000 knocked off the top, I think that's going to put things over the top. It's going to push things rather than being early adopters to we're going to start. It's going to become the norm. So yeah, it's a good time. So the only thing is that now the grid needs to get out of the way. And as Peter said, and I wholeheartedly agree with what Pete said, is that we have a patchwork. It's just like in building, where we're building, as you know, passive house homes. The rules change. You have a whole set of relationships and a new god in every different municipality you move into, because they interpret the code their way. And so the same thing is with each of the LDCs and each of the municipalities. And on top of that, you have grid restrictions, which is one of the reasons why we actually stopped doing. We didn't stop doing. We just don't offer it new to clients. We just part of our new builds when we do PV. But we don't do it anymore because where we are, there was just too much grid constraint. And so we just couldn't make new sales enough to sustain the business. So as soon as we get a grid where the IESO and the LDCs agree that solar is not going to hurt them, and we can accept more power generated in a distributed fashion, and the grid management systems are going to be able to accommodate that. And then we have new programs that actually evaluate the value of solar energy that's generated on the peak, as opposed to giving us a flat rate and moving us over to a two-tier system, to give us a value for our generated energy. I mean, there's a lot that has to evolve. And I think primarily I would put it out to culture. It's the culture at the grid management side of things, the LDCs and IESO. And once they start to become more green-minded, and when they start to understand the true value behind net metering and distributed generation, and the resiliency that comes to the grid as a result of that, I think we're going to see some change. But I think that's probably it. It's a cultural issue at the center.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Chris. Great comments. Want to thank all the rest of the members as well. Art, Pete, Stefan for some great comments as well. Thanks everybody in chat as well. We've had some people sharing. We'll come back to Roderick and Kelvin for some final words here. No worries, guys. But I just wanted to put a shout out to everybody in chat. We've got Robin, we've got Kevin, Brent. Thanks so much, Andrew and Kevin Cameron. Really appreciate all your comments there. You know, the sun is setting here, so I feel it's probably proper to start wrapping up our solar edition. But let's have some final comments from our presenters. Let's go over to Roderick for some final comments, and then we'll get some final comments from Kelvin.
I don't know if I really have any final comments other than it's interesting to kind of hear from everybody, because I'm still learning myself. A lot of good comments been shared. So I do hear you there, Pete, in terms of red tape. We had a little bit of I'm having an ongoing back and forth with regard to CSA and whatnot certification with our product, whether or not it just meets code. That's the discussion right now. So anyway, it's regulatory barriers are definitely an issue. I've been feeling that one lately.
Yeah, good point. And we'll hope we'll get the recording of this up next week, and we'll hope we'll get it into some of the hands of the people in those positions that can hopefully change that. Kelvin, and thanks so much, Roderick, for a great presentation. Kelvin, did you want to come in for some final words?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I think, you know, clearly You know, it's a field in its infancy, and you know, we're having some teething pains. We'll get through it, and I just look forward to the day when everybody's got solar on the roof, and we have, or everyone whose roof is suitable, because there's lots of other kinds of renewable energies out there and storage methodologies. So thanks everyone for coming. I mean, what a great turnout. Well done, Nick. I mean, boy, the numbers were great tonight. In spite of a beautiful night, I imagine a lot of people just sat out on their decks tonight. So thanks everyone for being here, and I enjoyed myself immensely. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin.
Everyone.
Appreciate those words. And yeah, no, great to see so many people. I think we hit 85, 90 people. So that's great. Invite everyone to join us in about 4 weeks' time. We're going to talk about battery technologies. So you can sign up for that one. And that'll be on Thursday, July 8th. So make sure you grab a link there and register. Once again, want to thank all the SmartNet Alliance members for coming on. Want to thank Roderick and Kelvin so much for their great presentations. Remind everybody that we will be putting out the recording next week, and thanks everybody for being part of this. I'll stay on the line a little bit. If you want to capture the chat, you can just hit the 3 dots there and save, and we'll hope to see you at the next Green Drinks. This is Nick Hebb for SmartNet Alliance. Good night.